හරිම සුදුයි.
Tonight on First at 9 this Monday, the 18th of March 2024. Weather advisory. Sri Lanka warns of extreme heat to continue. Outdoor events in schools temporarily postponed. Public urged to use water sparingly. Customs strike. Imported goods containers pile up at the Colombo port due to an ongoing customs strike. Cope troubles. SJB MP Derana English resigns from the Committee on Public Enterprise, citing the government's lack of governing standards. ADB assistance. ADB approves $100 million loan to enhance SME business resilience in Sri Lanka.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දිනූ සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
From Derana, this is Derana First at 9 with Ndivari Amuata and Mahesh Johnny. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
A very good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Monday's edition of First at 9 right here on Derana 24. We warmly welcome you to tonight's bulletin and also I warmly welcome you, Ndivari Amuata.
Good evening, Mahesh Johnny. Good evening, everyone. A very warm welcome to this Monday's edition of First at 9. I hope you enjoyed your weekend. And once again, throughout the week, we will be reporting to you on the latest developments from across Sri Lanka and around the world. Tonight, Mahesh,
We've been talking about warmly welcoming. It's literal because apparently it's very hot everywhere. Lots of advisories are going around telling people to be careful about it. Scorching temperatures.
And I think the key to this is to avoid as much as possible being exposed to the heat, the sun, the scorching weather, but also to keep yourselves hydrated. I think
drink a lot of water, eat watermelon. Anyway, there's a lot of stories to bring to you tonight as well. Parliamentarian Derana English is not happy with the governing process. He resigned from the COPE committee per se, and that story is coming up. Also, a lot of stories around the world. Well,
and the comments made by politicians, especially with the new appointments to COPE and the parliamentarian Derana English's resignation is interesting. That's coming up also during the bulletin. Plus, the Ceylon Electricity Board has come up with a new scheme for small and medium enterprises. That's encouraging. And internationally, Putin in
landslide victory.
But we saw this coming, didn't we?
Did we?
All right, it's time we start tonight's bulletin with the first story, the top story tonight on the current weather situation in the country.
Well, as adverse weather continues to affect living conditions of the public, the Ministry of Education today issued a circular addressing the plight of school children.
Now, temperatures are known to soar between 37 to 41 degrees Celsius, according to the Met Department.
Now, the circular informs all school principals to postpone inter-house sports meets or any other outdoor activities until the 24th of April this year in light of the prevailing extreme heat currently being experienced.
Meanwhile, the National Water Supply and Drainage Board urged the public to consume water sparingly as 18 water systems have been earmarked as risky following the ongoing dry weather situation impacting their performance.
Parts of the country continue to experience soaring temperatures and extreme heat over the past few days, waging a heavy toll on the general public. It recently came to light that the adverse weather was a result of the El Niño condition, along with a dire warning that this weather is expected to continue further. Consequently, the highest recorded temperature of 38.5 degrees Celsius during the past 24 hours was reported from the Kurunegala district. The Department of Meteorology stated that the heat index, or the temperature felt on the human body, is expected to increase to caution levels in the northwestern, north central, eastern and western provinces and the Monaragala, Manna, Ratnapura and Vavuniya districts. Meanwhile, the heat index continued to rise today as environmental temperatures spiked above the temperature of a human body, which stands at 37 degrees Celsius. Both children and adults have been directly affected by the extreme heat that has already claimed the life of one schoolboy last week.
The
effects of this extreme heat range from skin blisters to heat stroke. Drowsiness and loss of consciousness are also to be expected as a result of the heat. Individuals who experience those symptoms are advised to get hospitalized as immediate treatment is required.
As such, the Ministry of Education issued a circular informing all school principals to postpone inter-house sports meets and other outdoor activities until the 24th of April this year. This development comes in the wake of many schools disregarding a previous warning that where they proceeded to organize sports meets regardless of the current weather conditions across the island. The Ceylon Teachers Union expressed its views on the latest decision by the Ministry of Education.
Schools are organizing sports meets even as the Ministry of Education previously warned them to conclude all sports events by the 30th of March. However, now the government is urging all schools to postpone sports events after a majority of the preparations for the events are almost over. The Met Department announces the weather forecast for the day. Why didn't the government discuss with the Met Department prior to announcing the conclusion of sports meets before the 30th of March?
The first term of schools commenced on the 19th of February. Since the first school term is slated to continue even after the New Year's holidays, it is possible to hold sports meet and other outdoor sporting events during that period. However, at the moment, it is necessary that we pay more attention to the safety of the children.
The National Water Supply and Drainage Board, meanwhile, stated that water will have to be supplied on a shift basis as water consumption among the general public is increased at present.
At present, 18 water systems are at risk due to the hot weather. Concurrently, water is supplied on a shift basis to 16 water systems. We therefore request the public's assistance to limit the use of water to only essential requirements.
New Dulux Pentolite Hygiene Plus. Refreshing walls for generations.
Dulux. Nearly 3,500 containers with imported goods are stuck at the Colombo port over the past 4 days following a trade union strike initiated by the staff of Sri Lanka Customs last week.
Now, the custom officers engaged in the strike following the transfer of the reward fund, which was previously under the Customs Director General, to the Ministry of Finance.
On the 15th of March, the staff of Sri Lanka Customs, including customs officers, customs superintendents and customs staff officers, launched a trade union strike following an announcement made by the Treasury, where the Treasury announced that the balance of funds in the reward fund under the purview of the Customs Director General would be transferred for the Ministry of Finance. Justifying their demand, the customs officials claimed that the transfer of the reward fund to the Finance Ministry would result in delaying their payments.
The reward fund consists of the funds used for the welfare of customs officers and the management of the department. However, the Ministry of Finance highlighted a need to transfer this fund, claiming that this was an unnecessary sum that was being maintained in the account. At present, the Finance Ministry says that the relevant transfer has been made under an International Monetary Fund program prerequisite, where funds of several institutions were being brought under the control of the Finance Ministry, and therefore customs funds should also come under the purview of the Finance Ministry. We have issued 4 letters to the Finance Ministry to which we have not received any proper response for a discussion. Nearly 750 to 800 containers are held up at the port every day due to the strike.
The strike has caused a logjam of 3,500 containers being held at the Colombo port terminals.
වරායෙන් පිටත තිබෙන බහලුම් අංගණවල මේ වෙනකොට
Nearly 400 containers are held up outside the Colombo port terminals. Additionally, inside the port premises at the CICT, there are 3,500 imported containers yet to be cleared. It would be a huge crisis if these containers are not cleared during the day-to-day.
සිංහල අලුත් අවුරුදු උදාවත් එක්ක විශාල ප්‍රමාණයක් ලැබෙනවා.
Officials of the import and export sector informed the president of the significant business challenges faced by the respective authorities as a result of the strike launched during a critical time such as this. They further added that operations remain hindered by the strike without any access to shipments of essential raw materials. Subsequently, this has also halted the operations of factories as well. The Director General of Customs has already informed the President, the Ministry of Finance and the Secretary to the President about this ongoing situation. Therefore, we anticipate receiving a favourable response from the respective parties. State Minister of Finance Ranjit Siambalapidiya said that a discussion with the protesters will be held tomorrow under a directive issued by President Ranil Wickremesinghe.
Internal sources at the Central Bank of Sri Lanka say that the Central Bank administration has initiated discussions with its employees regarding the reduction of their increased salaries by a certain percentage. This follows the heavy criticism that ensued over the past month on the decision to increase salaries of Central Bank employees by some 70%. However, in a media briefing today, Parliamentarian Dr. Lanka said that the Central Bank trade unions have subsequently protested against the move.
In February this year, officials of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka took measures to increase the salaries of CBSL employees by a substantial 70%. This transpired after the monetary authority of the country was imbued with the ability to operate independently by way of a parliamentary act. However, this salary hike was heavily criticized by parliamentarians of both the ruling party and the opposition of the country, citing an arbitrary misuse of the recently legislated independence. Accordingly, internal sources of the CBSL confirmed that the administration has subsequently started discussions with its employees regarding the reduction of their increased salaries by a certain percentage. However, some parties are alleging that the central bank now aims to reduce the increased salaries as a part of a smoke and mirror campaign to mislead the general public. After halting the salary increments of others and constructing the necessary background to issue circulars to postpone elections citing no money, now they claim there is no crisis and they can increase their salaries. We must remind them that just like what happened to Ajit Nivad Cabral, the general public will also respond to these people who are trying to play games with them.
The CBSL, fearing the bill that we presented to abolish salary increments and to prevent them from awarding increments in the future, and in order to deceive Parliament, have agreed to reduce 25% of the increased salary. I would like to inform the Governor that this kind of deception is far too obvious to fool a whole nation of people.
The
CBSL management have asked the CBSL unions to agree to a reduction in their recently awarded increments. But the unions on the 14th of March had responded and said that they would not agree to something like that. The rationale provided was that if they reduce it now, the CBSL would lose its credibility. My question is, what else of its credibility is there for them to lose?
In other local stories we have for you tonight, now the Ceylon Electricity Board has introduced a special electricity connection scheme for small and medium-scale enterprises and residences. Now, according to the state power supplier, consumers that fall into this class can pay 25% of the, as a down payment and the balance in installments. Earlier this month, Minister of Power and Energy Kanchana Wijesekara confirmed that electricity consumers would be allowed to make payments for their new connections on an installment basis, where they will be able to pay 25% of the connection fee up front and the remaining amount within 10 or 12 installments. Now, speaking in Parliament, he highlighted that the Board of Directors of the Ceylon Electricity Board had also green-lighted this new system.
Samagi Jana Balawege Member of Parliament, Iran Vikramaratne announced his resignation from Parliament's Committee on Public Enterprises today. The opposition MP called for appointees to conform to minimum levels of probity and for removing roadblocks to action being taken on corruption. In this statement, he observed that 45 years since the establishment of the Committee on Public Enterprises, today the Oversight Committee has been rendered redundant. He also said that the mismanagement and corruption within the committee have largely gone unchecked due to statutory limitations in the standing orders.
SJB parliamentarian Eran Wickramaratne, who served on the Committee for Public Enterprise in previous parliaments and was reappointed a member of COPE after the recent prorogation of Parliament, resigned from the Oversight Committee today. Issuing a statement, he said that by appointing a member of the government as its chairman, the committee fails to meet its objectives in keeping a check on the executive arm of the government. He lamented that 45 years since its establishment, COPE today has come to be a redundant committee with mismanagement and corruption, largely unchecked due to limitations in statutory standing orders. He went on to suggest that standing orders be widened where irregularities and fraud, when in light, should reach the Attorney General directly, where the Commission to investigate allegations of bribery or corruption, or CIABOC, then proceeds to act. However, the MP states that the government blocks the process by limiting its standing orders and therefore compromises the efficacy of the committee. He further said that appointees to COPE as part of its 31-member team or chairperson must not be associated with allegations and or convictions and must have clearly outlined qualifications or disqualifications for its members.
I have tried to get standing orders amended to give COPE more teeth. That is so that COPE could refer mismanagement, fraud, robbing and stealing directly to the Attorney General or even to CIABOC. But this government has not really permitted that. So COPE is really ineffective. And then you have the situation where suitable persons are often not appointed. We had a former chairman and there were questions about him before Parliament was prorogued, and then COPE did not meet. And now the new committee has been appointed with him and others. And if you really look at it, we have an issue of the caliber of person that's being appointed. And there should be people who are appointed who have no allegations against them or no cases against them. People have lost confidence in the Sri Lankan Parliament. Even though it is legal, its legitimacy is in question. And I want to make it very, very clear that we cannot have a situation where the executive arm of government and corporations and government undertakings are generally directed by their board. The legislature and COPE is the check and balance on it, and therefore COPE needs to be effective. The Samagijala Balavege had basically nominated me as chairman and had also nominated Kabir Hashim as chairman of COPA. That is, if the opposition was going to be elected into those positions. But the government in principle had rejected that, not just now, they had rejected even in the earlier term.
While reiterating the claim made against parliamentarian Rohit Abegunawardena over his appointment as the chairman of the Committee on Public Finance, National People's Power parliamentarian Vijitha Herath said that he is prepared to respond to the legal action to be initiated by parliamentarian Abegunawardena. In other news, SJB parliamentarian Nalin Bandara expressed confidence in Sajith Premadasa's victory at the upcoming presidential election, while former parliamentarian of the JVP Nalin Jathisa claimed that certain SJB members are planning to join President Ranil Wickremesinghe. With that, let's have a look at some of the comments made in the political arena.
IMF එකට කියනවා දූෂණ වංචා නවත්තන්න අපි වැඩ කරනවා කියලා. ඒ වෙනුවෙන් අලුත් නීතියක් පනතකුත් සම්මත කරනවා.
We assure the IMF that steps will be taken to tackle corruption and fraud, so much so that a new act was passed for this purpose. After taking all of these measures, a thief was appointed to catch the other thieves. He will never do his job. Rohit is planning to send me a communique. I think this is a good time to hash this out. Let's deal with this in court.
බොහොම හොඳයි. අපිටත් ඒක හොඳ chance එකක්. උසාවියේදී ඒක බලමු. මම එන්තරවාසිය යවනවා.
I will forward a notice to him, and if there's no response, I will take legal action. We will deal with this in court.
අධිකරණයේ ඉස්සරහට යනවා. අපි අධිකරණයේදී හම්බෙමු.
අපි පක්ෂ බැඳගෙන හිටපු කාලයක් තිබ්බා. මම උපංගේ ශ්‍රී ලංකාකාරේ.
In times past, we were passionately dedicated to our parties. I am a die-hard member of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party. However, regarding taking decisions in recent times, we have had to set aside politics and think about the economy and the future generations.
ආර්ථිකය රට අපේ අනාගත පරම්පරාව ගැන හිතලා ගන්න තීන්දුවක් වුණේ.
අද අපේ රටේ ජනතාවගෙන් 139ක් සජිත් ප්‍රේමදාස මැතිතුමත් එක්ක ඉන්නවා. අනුර කුමාරට ඉන්නේ 20%යි.
39% of the people in this country are with Sajith Premadasa. Anura Kumara has 20%, while Ranil Wickremesinghe only has 5%. Any candidate candidate from the SLPP, including Namal, only has 7%. We are confident and certain that Sajith Premadasa will be elected as president of the country with a majority vote.
වැඩිම ඡන්ද ප්‍රමාණයක් කරන් දිනන්නේ සජිත් ප්‍රේමදාස මැතිතුමා කියන එක දැන් අපිට 100%ක් නෙමෙයි 100,000ක් විශ්වාසයි.
මේ වෙලාවේ සජිත් ප්‍රේමදාසව එතරම් කියවෙන්නේ නැහැ ජනාධිපති අපේක්ෂකයෙක් හැටියට.
Sajith Premadasa's name is not widely discussed as a candidate for the presidential election. Parliamentarians around him are planning to join Ranil Wickremesinghe. They are not abandoning the party right now because if a parliamentary election is announced, it would be beneficial for them to contest under the Samiki Jana Balawegaya ticket. As a result, they are monitoring the announcement of a parliamentary election closely.
නැත්තම් මේ මහා ඡන්දෙද ජනාධිපතිතුමනි කියලා සාකච්ඡාවක් මේ වෙලාවේ සමාජයේ ඇති වෙන්න ඕනේ නැහැ.
Welcome back to the news. The Asian Development Bank has approved a $100 million loan to provide small and medium-sized enterprises in the country with more access to finance and to build their resilience to any external business environmental changes.
Now, ADB's senior financial sector specialist Manohari Gunawardena cited this development on the basis that SMEs contribute a substantial 52% to the country's gross domestic product while providing employment to 45% of the population.
A gender gap assessment is also slated to be conducted with a view to improving women entrepreneurship access to finance.
The Asian Development Bank has approved a $100 million loan to provide small and medium-sized enterprises in Sri Lanka more access to finance in order to build their resilience to external shock factors such as the recent economic crisis and the effects of climate change. ADB's senior financial sector specialist Manohari Gunawardena observed that SMEs play a critical role in Sri Lanka's economy, contributing 52% of the country's GDP and employ 45% of the population. She further mused that it was therefore important to provide SMEs, particularly women-led enterprises, with the necessary support to sustain and grow the sector's contribution to the economy. ADB, through participating financial institutions, will open a $50 million line of credit for underserviced SMEs in the export, tourism, technology, agriculture and manufacturing sectors. It will also establish a $500,000 special facility to cover guarantee subsidies for women-led SMEs, with a gender gap assessment to be conducted with a view to improving women entrepreneurs' access to finance. The project will build on the government's equity contribution through National Credit Guarantee Institution Limited, which provides partial credit guarantees on loans to SMEs. ADB confirmed that it would provide the necessary support to the NCGI to adopt procedures to effectively support SMEs, including underwriting guarantees, risk management and risk-based pricing, and guarantee recovery options. The project will incorporate green financing elements through climate adaptation and mitigation measures for SMEs.
Taking you to the Colombo Stock Exchange, shares snapped their 10-day winning streak today as indices closed in red, dragged down by price losses in industrial and consumer discretionary stocks. The benchmark all-share price index closed 0.14% lower at 11,320.85, with LOLC Finance and Royal Ceramics Lanka being the top losers. High net worth and institutional investor participation was noted in Hatton National Bank, Haymas Holdings and Haley's Fabric, while mixed interest was observed in Brown's Investment and First Capital Holdings. Trading volume on the index fell to 69.7 million shares from 76.2 in the previous session. The S&P SL20 index of more liquid stocks recorded a close of 0.25% and ended trading at 3,237.12. Turnover for the day recorded at 1.32 billion rupees, down from 1.62 billion in the previous session. However, on a positive note, foreign investor sentiment improved, with foreign investors once again closing as net buyers at the end of today's market session.
Here's Dilushka Dimel, who joins us now with a few thoughts to round off our Market in View segment for this week.
In terms of the domestic equity market, the ASPI increased 291 points to 11,336.7 last week, while the S&P 20 increased to 3,245 from 3,147. Last week's total market turnover increased 9% week on week to 8.8 billion rupees amidst positive sentiment created in the market over the past few weeks. From a fixed income perspective, the primary treasury bill auction held last week saw the weighted average yields of the 3-month, 6-month and 12-month instruments increasing 14, 13 and 10 basis points respectively. The primary bond auction saw the 5-year treasury bonds weighted average decreasing by 207 basis points. Secondary market weighted average yields for the 12-month bill stood at 10.05% versus 9.96% the week prior. In the US markets, Nasdaq saw a 0.7% decrease due to a spike in producer prices and chip stocks continuing to decline. While in commodities, oil prices climbed 4% to close at $85.4 and gold prices increased 1.2%, closing at $2,159.
Taking you to global oil prices, they inched up today, expanding on last week's gains as Ukraine increased its attacks on Russian energy infrastructure over the weekend. Brent crude futures for the upcoming month of May rose 0.7% to settle at $85.96 a barrel. US West Texas Intermediate April contract was up 70 cents to $81.74, while its more active May contract gained 71 cents to close at $81.29. Drone strikes on Russian refineries added $2 to $3 of risk premium to crude prices last week, which remained in place today as Ukraine sustained its military attacks over the weekend. The focus this week is on the outcome of the U.S. Federal Reserve's two-day meeting that ends on Wednesday, which should bring clarity on the timing of the interest rate cuts, which would stimulate demand in the United States.
Now time to take a look at the currency exchange rates for today.
The National Development Bank PLC says it plans to raise up to 10 billion rupees through a Basel III compliant debentures sale. The debentures will be issued in one or multiple issuances, the timing for which is within 1 year time frame from the date of obtaining shareholder approval.
Meanwhile, Lakshapana Batteries confirmed that it has completed the acquisition of BlueScope LifeSat Lanka. With that, let's take a look at corporate sector news for today.
National Development Bank PLC said it plans to raise up to 10 billion rupees through a Basel III compliant debenture sale. Subject to the approval of the shareholders, the bank will issue 100 million Tier 2 listed, rated, unsecured, redeemable debentures with a non-viability conversion of 100 rupees each. The bank said that the debentures will be issued in one or multiple issuances, the timing of which will be within a 1 year time frame from the date of obtaining shareholder approval. Meanwhile, Lakshapana Batteries PLC has completed the acquisition of BlueScope LifeSat Lanka Private Limited on the 15th of March 2024 per the terms and conditions set out in the share purchase agreement entered into between the two firms. In the meantime, recently, American Corner Jaffna, in collaboration with American Center Chennai, hosted the media literacy workshop for University of Jaffna students, connecting them virtually with students in Chennai. The workshop, led by media educator and Your Story Tamil editor Induja Raghunathan, equipped 22 Sri Lankan and South Indian students with skills crucial in navigating today's complex media landscape, such as identifying fake news, employing critical thinking, recognizing biases, and mastering basic fact-checking techniques.
And that wraps up tonight's edition of First at 9. We'll see you again tomorrow at the same time. I'm Indi Variyamwatha.
I'm Mahesh Jani. Thank you for joining. Have a very good night.
For news and information you can trust 24 hours a day, visit adaderana.lk.